If you want to participate, contact me at ordinarywomenpodcast@gmail.com. I'm sure you have great projects to brag about. You can also follow me and message me on Instagram at ordinarywomenpodcast, on Twitter at ordinarywomenpc, or on Facebook on the page Ordinary Women. Hi everyone, welcome to a new episode of Ordinary Women. Hi Yesenia, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
I'm super excited to have that chat with you. Can you start by giving us a quick introduction of yourself, please?
Yes, definitely. First, I just want to say that the idea behind this podcast is absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
All those listening, I hope you really enjoyed today's episode and continue listening for more to hear the extraordinary women or the ordinary women that actually are on this. My name is Yesenia Carolina Isen. I am a first-generation Cuban American, born and raised in South Florida, more particularly Hialeah. I was raised with an older brother and a younger sister, and so yeah, I am currently a product security engineer at a Fortune 100 company. So I work in the cybersecurity application security space, which is something I absolutely love. And I also train and coach kids in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is, if you're not aware of, it's a grappling form of martial arts. It's more tiered towards what happens once you hit the ground. There is the techniques that teach you how to get someone to the ground or what happens. One of my best and favorite things about Jiu-Jitsu is it was originally started for women. It's meant for folks that had smaller body figure, being able to actually go against those that are bigger. You know, we're using their momentum, we're using their weight, their push, their leverage to capitalize on that to either restrain them or get away. So I absolutely love that. And I guess my whole purpose in life, I don't know if I really found out what the purpose of my life is the empowerment of not just for women, but anybody in general to be able to accomplish whatever it is that your heart desires. You know, I myself have put myself in two very male-dominated fields, security and software engineering, which that is back when I was in school. Thankfully, nowadays it's gotten a little bit better. We still need a bigger push, but I would be in classrooms and it would just be me and the boys, right? This goes back from when I was in high school, goes back to when I was in college. Even when I started work, I was working for a company for a good 7 years, and I was the only female on the technical teams. And the females that I would meet, they were more of the project managers, the BAs, the business analysts, that's what a BA is. And there's nothing wrong with that, but those women were brilliant, and I saw the technical aspects in their minds. They were just being held back somewhere. So I'm very big on folks being able to do whatever it is that fulfills them, whether it may not seem something logical or, you know, society approved at the moment. I take this moment to challenge anybody listening to this to think of something that maybe frightens you. You know, for example, next weekend, and hopefully by the time you guys hear this, I have already competed. I'll be competing next week for Tap Out Cancer Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu competition down here in Miami. The goal of the competition is to raise funds for charity for children with cancer. So I decided after several years I had a shoulder injury that kept me out for about a year, and then fear and just nervousness. The first official competition I went into, I completely blacked out in 4 of my rounds. So I'm hoping for a comeback this time. But during that time, as I trained and I continued my lifestyle, every time one of my colleagues or my teammates or one of my students would compete, I would just get this feeling inside of myself where it was like, you can do that. Of course you can do that. Aren't you doing this? And then I would sign up, and a few weeks before, I would pull out of the competition out of pure nerves. So I'm very excited that I'm not pulling out this time. I've raised about I think 550 towards the cause right now. So, you know, I'm doing it for the cause and for myself. So if there's something that just calls you inside to do, I give you this action to go do it now. You know, try to figure out how to build it into your life.
Cool. Hope everyone gets already inspired by this, and best of luck for your competition.
Thank you.
That's so cool to do that. And can you tell us something unusual about yourself?
Oh, that wasn't enough? Another unusual thing about myself is I'm a big geek. I build out Legos. I work from home and I'm a big geek. So my office is kind of a mixture of Deadpool was one of my favorite Marvel. Star Wars, I have a ton of Legos. I actually have 2 closets full of Legos. I love doing Legos and building them. I'm actually
Cool.
very hands-on, so I like IKEA furniture. I love Legos. And it's just a mixture of different comic books and anime and video games. Super Mario is another one, Final Fantasy VII, Guardians of the Galaxy. So my office is kind of very geeked out, as I like to say. And that I think is something unusual. Anytime somebody comes over to my house and they see my office, they're like, "Wow, I didn't know you were that geeky." And I'm like,
Cool. Thank you so much for sharing. And since here we talk a lot about, well, about women in general, I like to start the podcast by asking, was there an event in your life or a moment when you realized that you are a woman?
So I grew up in a Hispanic family down in South Florida in Hialeah. And I think the goal of Hispanic culture is to remind you constantly that you're a woman. Growing up, they would always hand me brooms or have me in the kitchen, or I was always cooking and cleaning, and I absolutely hated it. I was raised with an older brother and then 2 cousins that were kind of like brothers because they were always with us. And then it didn't really occur to me what a woman was until my period hit. Not that I didn't know what a woman was, but I think it made me extra vigilant, I think is the word. But definitely, as a woman growing up in a Hispanic household, you become very aware with it because your older brother is outside playing with your cousin and you're stuck inside the house cleaning. Whenever you ask, why can't I go outside? The response is always, oh, because you're the girl. Another example was my father, he used to teach martial arts, and that's kind of where my love for martial arts comes from. As he had a dojo, he was teaching, and my brother and I first started in the course. My mom at the time was pregnant with my sister, and when she gave birth to my sister, I was left home to help my mom with my sister. Not that I didn't mind helping my mom, but my brother went off to the dojo to learn. I was left, and throughout my life, even my family to this day, they still, I don't want to say they appreciate my success because they kept saying, hey, you're a woman, you need to learn how to cook, you're not going to get married, you need to learn how to clean, like no man's going to want to come over if your house is dirty. Keep putting that Hispanic societal thoughts in me. And I always rebelled against it. It's a joke now with my grandma because I always loved computers as well. So my grandma would be like, what are you going to do when your future husband comes over and you can't cook for him? And I'm like, I'll buy him food or I'll hire a chef. Those were my response at the age of 10 and 11 because I was like, this is ridiculous. I was like,
Yeah.
it's okay, Grandma. I'll be rich enough and I'll just hire. And then she's like, what are you going to do when you have to clean the house? Let me tell you, when that woman came over and saw my Roomba, she died laughing. She's like, you always said you were going to have a robot do your chores. And I was like, yes, Grandma. Our Roomba folks, you're welcome. I manifest that back when I was 10.
That's amazing.
So yeah, those societal like Hispanic, I want to say requirements, I guess, expectations. It really made me realize I was a woman and made me realize that it wasn't right. So you can ask my parents, you can ask my grandparents. I was always rebellious whenever it became like, oh, you can't do this because you're a woman. I would figure out how to do something because I thought it was ridiculous.
Rebellious from a young age. That's cool.
Yes.
Like, not the part where you had to do this, but yeah. Did you ever manage to make your brother or cousins take part in the chores and stuff like that?
No, I couldn't get them. I couldn't outsmart them at that age.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They were also bigger, so maybe that's where my grapplings actually started. Because whenever I would try to do something like that to outsmart them, to get them to do chores, they would just wrestle with me. So, or lock me in a closet, big brother
Oh my
stuff.
god. Just family being family.
Yes.
And did you grow up having a feminine role model?
Yes, I actually had a few. 2 are a little unorthodox, but the first one, of course, is my mother. My mother is, bless her heart, is a very sweet, loving, giving soul. It took a while for, I guess, me to realize it because I was in that rebellious stage as a as a kid. My parents and I talk about it now. And it's, you know, I look back and I'm a single woman. I have my own household. So I see what it takes to continue a household. But my mother worked a full-time job. She took care of us. She took us where we wanted. And they did the best that they could with the resources that they had to make sure that we were fortunate enough to live the lifestyle that we did. You know, it's not much that we can say, that kids can say, or at least kids, you know, or folks can say that they each had their own bedroom. We were three kids, and each of us, you know, eventually had our own bedroom, and that's something that my parents wanted to make sure that we had, so that, one, it caused less chaos at home. My sister is about 7 years younger than me, and when she was younger, she severely had ADHD and just could not stay still. And at the time, you know, the 7 year difference, I was in my rebellious stage. It wasn't pretty sometimes. But my mother was a big inspirational figure for me. You know, she would go to work, sometimes take us. She would teach whatever she could. She would come home, clean, cook. You know, she was always moving. She wasn't relaxing. So she was definitely a huge, huge role model. And it's taken me several years to actually realize that. A little bit less, maybe more in the unique side. Abby from NCIS was a huge inspirational figure for me when I was a kid. I always wanted to be like a hacker or a secret scientist and have my own lab. And watching her in high school and college in that lab actually is the reason I got my master's. So I hold a bachelor's in computer science and a master's in digital forensics. I don't use my master's right now as a career. It's help for consulting and like knowledge knowing, but I don't actually do any digital forensics activities, I guess would be the word. But watching her in a lab and, you know, always in her unique, awesome outfits, she became a big inspiration to why I even got my master's. Like, I wasn't going to get a master's, but I was like, you know what? Abby from NCIS does digital forensics. I want a master's in digital forensics. When I was also searching,
Cool.
yeah, she's cool. I don't know if you've seen her, but she comes in with like these goth and then her pigtails. She always looks amazing. At the time when I was also looking for a master's, there wasn't the diversity of different cybersecurity degrees. It was either information assurance, cybersecurity masters. So the digital forensics was actually more focused and more hands-on, while the other ones were more research and more reports, so to speak. So I wanted to do more of the technical. And then third, inspirational figure, and this one kind of just falls into my rebellious side, was Chelsea Handler. I absolutely love her. I love vodka, and in college, she was a huge inspiration for me. I read a lot of her books, and just her mannerisms and her attitude, I think really got me through college and my career. You know, I worked and I learned with just men. So having like a strong female figure that you're reading who's, what's the word I want to say? I don't want to say downplaying men, but, you know, she had this superiority over men that I was like, you know what, if I'm going to last in this field, I need to get them to respect me. So I used a lot of things that I learned through her to help me in my roles. And there's many other women, role models that have done the same, but have been more of a more frequent inspiration.
That's very cool. Yeah, these are very cool inspirations. What did they taught you? I guess you touched a bit on that with Chelsea Handler, but yeah, if you had like one main learning for one of these women, what would it be?
We can do whatever we set our mind to, honestly.
That's very cool. Yeah.
That's what I learned from all three of them.
Yeah, that's very true, and like love this. And do you currently have any female role model?
I do. Rihanna would probably be the top one. That's usually what I say is like, oh, if Rihanna could have an ex, I could have one too.
Yeah.
I strive for success. I strive for accomplishment in my life, and I've gotten to a point where I've noticed there's some things that I can't and cannot do, like accounting and figuring out how to work out. So one thing I say is, if Rihanna can have a personal trainer, so can I. So I hired a personal trainer. You know, I got an accountant. I found ways to offload or outsource some of the things that, not that I can't do, but if you're going to learn something, it takes time to learn something. It takes about 20 hours to learn a new skills. So it's like either take 20 hours to learn accounting, or I spend some money, get somebody who's already experienced with it, and then I can use those 20 hours towards something else. So
Yeah.
celebrity and successful people, that's something that they've taught me is sometimes it's going to cost a little, but you'll get more out of that money if you put it to the right use.
Yeah, definitely. That makes complete sense. And do you think the lack of representation of women in society had an impact on you?
Oh, definitely. There's the whole, what is it, that you don't see them on the screen. I saw a lot of Hispanic female role models on the screen, but they were always representing what I didn't want them to present, right? They were always in the kitchen, or they were always cleaning, or they were always submissive to their husbands. And that impacted me because I didn't see them speaking up. I didn't see them doing things that they wanted. I always saw those characters on TV sad in some aspect. Like part of them, like they lost part of themselves. In class, just the fact that I was the only female, it really rendered me because some folks didn't want to help me. Some folks didn't want to work with me. And I learned quickly that I had to gain their respect, and I had to work a little bit harder to be seen, not by the professor, but from the classmates, because the classmates, essentially are at the same level as you. And this is actually something that I see in my career, and I see on the mats, right? I came into a group where it was just, in jiu-jitsu. I came on the mat and it was nothing but men, men that are in the 200 pounds and the 300 pounds. They're big guys, they're built, they're scary looking. And the fact that there was no women there made me want to be there. I don't know what it was. I don't know what it is, but every time I see something or, something that doesn't have women, I want to be there because I know that if I'm there, somebody else is going to see it and she's going to want to join. Honestly, when I started teaching back in 2019 as a kids coach. And as I was on the mat with the young kids and parents would bring in their kids, you would notice that they would sign up the boys and not the girls. So what I started doing, yeah, and you would see these girls, they would get so excited on the sidelines, just sitting there watching. So what I started doing was when I would see them sign up is if there was another guy there, like adult, I would row with him and kind of tell him like, hey, let's be impressive for the little girl. So we would kind of do a choreographic thing where I was beating up the boy. He didn't give it to me. I had to work for it. But then the girl was like, oh my God, she can do it. And since I started teaching, there has been an increase of young girls that have started training. I stopped teaching the younger, and I worked more now with the teenage. They're like 9 to about 12, and it's just, the classes just don't line up with my schedule anymore, unfortunately. And every time I go back to the little kids, it's all male instructors, and the last 2 classes that I had to substitute for, there hasn't been a female on that. There hasn't been a girl female. So I've noticed that just me standing there on the mat or even teaching these different classes has brought in more women because they see it. So the lack of representation has a second effect of me. It's like, hey, there's nobody there. Let me go destroy this one. All right, it's male dominated. Let me go show the boys what's up. So that's
very cool.
That's how I took it.
Love that. And do you know if any of them continued, like any of the young girls that you had continued practicing even after you were not their teacher anymore?
Yes. A lot of the young girls that were in we call them mini-matics. So they're about 4 to about 8.
Okay.
The ones that had been there when I was originally teaching, we actually moved them up to the megamatics, which is the teenager-ish group. They're younger, but we moved them up. It was either the time worked with the parents or there was too many like newer kids in the mini ones, so their level was a lot different. And it's so impactful. It's so empowering. Like they come in and they see me and they get so excited. They give me these little hugs and these huge smiles, and they're like, "Well, we're just happy to have you here, Coach." And it's it's very fulfilling.
Oh, that's so great. I hope many continue to come and that you can inspire the ones who are a bit older now. That's very
Yes, I hope
cool.
I call my little minions.
Cool. Thank you for sharing. I'd like to jump on kind of the second part of the podcast and talk more about you and like your own project or like life experience or achievements. Can you start by telling us what you want to talk about?
I guess my life experience or achievement would probably be where I'm at in life. I'm in two male-dominated fields, highly respected in both. One at my gym, and then one in just network-wise. I jumped into a Fortune 500 company as a senior engineer, and thank you. And within a year and a half, I built out a team of about 22 and, was promoted to principal, which is the next level. And I know a lot of that has come from both my time on and off the mat and just striving through and working towards things that I love. So overall, like, I can't pick one or two things. I'm kind of proud of it all. So it's kind of hard to focus on it. But just where I'm at in a career, I'm kind of like the sought out person for my team. And I've been able to coach and mentor folks around the world, really. Like, I have some mentees out in Singapore, I have mentees out in Europe, all over the United States. And one of the things that I love doing is just giving back to the community and being able to help folks kind of move into a STEM position, really, that they're excited for. So I think that's really been my proudest is a lot of the folks that I hired on my team, they didn't necessarily have security backgrounds. They had more of like an engineering or an IT background, but their passion and their desire to learn and the desire to work really was what drove me to hire them. And for the last year and a half, we've done just an amazing amount of work, and I'm very proud of them, what we've accomplished, and just essentially where I'm at. Like, I thought I was going to be working in a lab by myself, but to be able to work with such amazing talent and such amazing minds, I think in itself is something to be very proud of. And not just at work, but on the mats too. It's crazy to share space and this technical knowledge with folks that do different things. Like, there's a pharmacist, there's firefighters, there's police officers. We have folks in all different ranges of fields that I share a mat with, and it's very harmonized environment. Nobody's trying to compete with one another. We have our competitors, of course, but it's more of like a learning environment, and I'm very proud of being a part of both of them and teaching in both levels, I guess.
So important who you are surrounded by, but also I think who you surround yourself by. As in, I'm sure you've played some part in like recruiting and retaining them, whether on the mat or at your job or anywhere.
Yes.
So yeah, what do you think you do that attract people and make them want to continue being with you, working with you, navigating around you?
A few things. First, one thing that I learned in some trainings and things is people don't want you to go in there and tell them what to do, right? Everybody has the answer. You have to figure out how to get it out of them. So in software development, we have a thing called rubber ducky, and it goes back to a software engineer back in the day had a rubber ducky on his desk, and every time he got stuck, he would talk to the rubber ducky. And eventually, after he would talk to the rubber ducky for a time, not only did his coworkers think he was insane, but he figured out the problem. So that's kind of what I aim to do is, and you can ask my teammates, or not my teammates, my colleagues, is I try to be folks' rubber ducky. I don't have all the answers, so I start posing questions. Okay, so explain to me what's going on. What do you think the problem is? How do you think you can solve it? Is there any issues with how you're going to solve it? Is there anything you're not thinking about? Is there anything that's worrying you? So I tend to ask them, and I tend to empower them. Like, I hired them because I got the sense that I can trust that they would make the right decisions and follow through in their decisions. So if I'm going to trust them, I need to make sure that I don't micromanage them either. So I'll go ahead and kind of give them that empowerment to move forward with whatever decision they have. If I do see something that's, maybe not correct, either I would be like, hey, I'm going to give you a suggestion, or let me raise a concern that I see. Or if not, I would pose it as a question. It's like, okay, I see all this, but do you think that XYZ will cause an issue? And if not, how would you solve that? And taking things like that where they are mentally solving the problems or they're the ones thinking about it, I've seen has made a night and day difference, because our team works on, I can't even give you a number of different things at a time. So for me to be on top of every single one, I'm the technical lead for the team. So for me to be on top of every single one of them would be absolutely impossible for me to do. I don't have the brain capacity even to keep up with what I'm doing. So to keep up with what I'm doing, and there's in the technical space, is just mind burnt out, I guess.
Yeah.
So I learned at a very young age, and honestly, in my previous job, I was working 3 years in a software engineering team that did specifically security software, and I learned then that I just had to trust my engineers. They're there for a reason. So that's my long spiel of.
Look, that's very cool. Thank you for sharing. And yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with all of that. Also, like, my ultimate pet peeve is unsolicited advice. So I really resonate with what you're saying.
Yes, I'm rebellious. So I'm one of those that if you tell me to do something, I am most likely, and I don't like your tone or something,
Yeah.
I'm most likely gonna, like, in my head tell you to fuck off.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, same. Like, I would just let people talk and just like remain silent until they're done, and I'm just like, oh yeah, sure. And then do the exact opposite, which is not great communication, to be fair, but yeah.
Right, as a leader, it's not great. I had this experience at my current in my current position when I first started. I remember this gentleman had scheduled a meeting for about an hour, and it wasn't like, "Hey, how do you plan on doing this?" It's like it literally started as like, "Oh, let me tell you how to do this."
Ooh.
I don't know what he said for the next hour,
Yeah.
but he didn't let anybody talk for the next hour.
People who can't stop talking, it's just like, oh my god, like, just shut up, please. 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's like, how am I supposed to ingest this? Like,
It's,
but
yeah.
yeah, I don't know what he ever said, and I don't know if I ever implemented whatever he said. But
Does it even matter?
thanks for the feedback.
Thank you for sharing your unwanted opinion. And was there like anyone who helped you achieving your goal of like empowering people, if I can say it that way?
I had a lot of angels in my life, some that I've known of and some that I didn't. And I've had folks that have opened the door for me before I even realized the door was open. And I'll give you an example. Back in my undergrad, I was working at the university. So I would work my 40 hours. And since I was already on the university, I would go ahead and take my classes. So I was pretty much at the university from like 8 in the morning to about 10 o'clock at night. So in the summer, I had this one course, and that course would start like at 7:30, 8 o'clock-ish, and ends at like almost 10 o'clock at night. Since it was summer, the summer was short, and it was kind of like a project one. The professor will assign teams, and then like every so often, you would have to present your progress on the project. So I was set on a team of 5. It was a total of 5. I was the only female, and he did that on purpose. All the females that were in the class, they were in a group of guys, and just to see kind of how. Our project did fairly well. Of course, there was that one that, always sidelines the team.
Yeah.
But when we would present, I would be the one talking. I would present what the boys were working on. I would present the work. I would present the technical information. This way, I knew that when I did that, I was taking ownership for the team, and then also kind of working on my public speaking skills too. Well, summer ended, and it was about 2 weeks after the class had ended, and it was a Saturday around 10 a.m. I had gotten a text message. It's like, hey, I'm so-and-so. I'm a recruiter for X company. Do you have a moment to chat? I was literally like in the living room watching TV, watching my boyfriend at the time play Call of Duty, like in the PJs Saturday morning, that chill. And I was like, okay. So I took the phone call, and long story short, I was actually offered an internship at the company. I didn't have to interview. I didn't have to do anything. The gentleman that had called me was literally calling me to give me a start date.
Oh my God, that's
Yes,
amazing.
yes. And I was like, what? How? And he's like, so and so, who is your professor, gave raving reviews about you. And we want to bring you into an internship. So that's how I got my foot into the door. And when I got there, I think within the first week, I realized that I was on the same floor as the security team. So the security team was like in this little corner next to one of the cafeterias, and they had a sign. It was like a glass door, which they had a curtain covering it. It was amazing.
Ooh.
And on the glass door, they had janitor's office to kind of throw people off. So when I found that that was security, I was like, I need to get myself into security. I need to break into the janitor's office.
Nice.
So I'm not sure who. I think it was the same professor who helped me get there, but I kind of annoyed and bothered everybody I spoke to. They're like, "Oh, how's your interview going? What is it you wanted to do?" I was like, "I want to work in security. How do I get into security?" So I would watch people come in and out of the security office because you had to walk through my area to go to the bathroom. So I would talk to the security team, and every time they would go to the bathroom, I would go with them. There was one female at the time in that office, so every time she would go into the bathroom, I would go. And eventually, within 2 months of the internship, I started the beginning of September. The beginning of December, I was already being transferred over to the security team as an intern.
Oh wow.
So, like I said, I don't know who did it, which one of the folks that I annoyed.
Maybe all of them. Everyone was
All of
like,
them.
guys, you need to take her.
Yes, make her stop. But those are angels that have helped me. And of course, there's been others throughout, like getting this position. There was an angel as well who saw what I brought to the table and opened the door for me. So I always just say, be kind to folks. Show that you're passionate. Show that you want to learn, that you want to be there, and honestly, send out thank you notes. That's actually something that my hiring manager said. She's like, yeah, the only difference between you and the other person was that you sent me a thank you email. And that for me meant a lot more than your experience. And I was like, yes.
Cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
be vocal about everything that you do, I guess, is
Yes.
very important.
Manifest it. You know what they say? Just
Mm.
if you speak it, it'll come to truth somehow.
Yeah, that's very cool. And what like sort of challenges have you faced?
Challenges that I faced have honestly been a woman in these male-dominated fields.
Yeah, that is.
It's I've had professors in college really question me on where I want to go. They're like, "Are you really sure that software engineering is for you? Are you sure you don't want to do something else? Are you sure you want to do this?" Um, I get into calls with engineers at my current company. They're a lot more accepting. But I've been in interviews where I've had folks leave when they noticed that I was females. That they would be like, "Oh no," or I'll get questions like, "Are you married? Do you have kids? Are you gonna have kids?" I'm like, "It's none of your business." That doesn't.
You're joking. That's
Absolutely not. So those were things that I've had to face where it's more of a nuance. It's where it's like, oh, so I'll give you an example. Back in my IT days, I was given a ticket to go do a job, and I called in to schedule, and they're like, yeah, sure, come. And I show up, and they're like, oh, I thought we were gonna get a male technician. And I was like, no, you got me. I'm here to fix your problems. And I was an expert on their problems. They wouldn't accept me.
oh
So I went back to the office. I told my boss, and they called in, and they're like, oh, well, we don't want her. We want someone that knows what they're doing. Get one of the guys. Can you bring one of your senior in? He's like, she is one of our seniors. And it was this whole buckle where the person just did not want me to help them. So we ended up just closing the ticket and saying customer refused service.
Yeah. I mean, at that point, honestly, it's just infuriating.
Yeah, and it's things like that that I've had to deal with. You know, you get these sly comments in meetings sometimes. You get somebody else saying exactly what you said. You get my favorite is I'll go into interviews when I was interviewing, and their feedback was she's not technical enough, and I'm like, what do you mean I'm not technical enough? I was like, I was describing how I infiltrated my neighbor's Wi-Fi. Like, what do you mean? How am I not?
Wait, sorry, you did what?
And I was like, I ended up having to write for me to find like another job. I had to put extra work. I had to write articles and do podcasts, and I created a course off in cyber.it because I was like, I am technical. I might not be portraying the technicality during these like interviews, but it's there. You also don't give me a method. You're asking me questions and you're asking me to speak about it.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Like they're leading the interview, if they have a doubt of it, like ask more questions. That's literally your job. You're
yes,
completely failing as an interviewer if you're not like, yeah.
right. So, those are just things that I've had to face. At the gym, when I first started, there was always since I was only female, nobody wanted to train with the female. So when it came time to partner up, I was always sitting there like looking around trying to figure out who to go to because they would all do the like don't look at her, don't look at her.
Ah.
So it's better now. Now I just throw myself into the team and they're forced to. It's no longer, are you going to train with me? It's like, you're training with me.
That's not a question, that's an order.
Yes.
And if they don't, you can actually fight, which is like maybe pretty cool.
Yes, yes. You get the new guys that come in and they're like, oh, it's the female. They go late and then I just destroy them and it's fun.
Yeah, I can imagine. I'd love to see that. And was there on the contrary anything easier than you thought would be?
I guess breaking the glass ceiling for females into the security space in the software engineering. I say that's easier because I came in as a technical expert, as somebody knowledgeable. I was a good role model for what to look for. Not to say that the next person that came in should look or be as me, but I noticed that once I was on a team or I was actually demonstrating what I can do, it helped bring in more women on the mats. It helped bring in more women into the field and being more accepted of it. It's still a long going challenge or thing, but being able to, I mean, I have a big mouth. I'm very rebellious, so getting them to respect me, I think it was a battle at first, but I think as years gone by, I've learned how to come into a brand new room and gain that respect, or at least that facade of respect.
That's very cool. Why are you proud of yourself?
It's just the idea that I can do anything that I put my mind to. There was a point where I was waking up at 6 a.m. and having 7 a.m. trainings with some of the boys before I would go to work, and some of them were regional champions in wrestling. Back in their high school careers. They had a long resume of accomplishments within the sport. So the fact that I was able to wake up in the morning and go toe to toe with them, it just makes you proud. Like it's weird to say that, hey, I guess it's why Fight Club became a Fight Club. It's like and I would say this sometimes in my interviews too, and it probably was taken the wrong way, but once you wrestle with somebody that's 300 pounds early in the morning, there's really nothing else that can stop you, right?
Yeah.
That's how I see it. So my jujitsu training has kind of given me this. I know I'm mortal, but it's kind of given this like you can take on and do anything that you want in life. Like if you can fight and make a 300-pound man sweat and worry that he's gonna tap out, there's really nothing in this world that you can't do.
Wow, yeah, definitely. Words of wisdom. I think I'm done with my questions. It was amazing listening to you. Is there anything that we haven't mentioned during our conversation that you would like to talk about?
Uh, yeah, well, first I want to say thank you so much for giving me the space to speak. I hope that the listeners have taken a lot of this and feel empowered to kind of achieve anything that they have in their mind, to know that they could take on the world, know that they can take on their goals and accomplishments. A big shout out and thank you to my parents, my siblings, my teammates, my coworkers, anyone that's been there in my corner. But like one of my guy friends once told me when I was at rock bottom, I guess, when I was at the most darkest point of my life, is there's nothing in this world that you can't mentally put yourself to do. So if you see something that you want and you're fearful, listen to that fear. Figure out how you can do it. You can always, it doesn't have to be today, it could be next year, it could be the following, but you need to start setting up a plan so that you could make it. It's none of this like instant gratification is going to happen with what you want to achieve. You gotta put the work into it, but you can be breaking glass ceilings. You can be in areas that you don't fit in and make a difference so that you could open the door for somebody else. And that's what I tell my students, my girls, when they get stressed out. I let them know, I'm like, hey, you know that there's little girls that pass by here, and as you are going against the little boys, they're excited and they're pointing to you and they're talking to their parents and they're like, I want to do this. I want to do this. Look, it's a girl doing it. So it doesn't have to be a girl. It could be a man or a boy or, whatever you identify. It's something that you want to do, go for it. As long as, you don't harm others. Or if you do harm others, it's in a respectful space like the mats. So that's really what I want to say is, thank you once again to those that spend the time and dedication to help me grow as a human, and make sure that you're prioritizing yourself to grow and help others grow there too.